Sit back and relax. You're listening to the Wealth Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. This podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. My guest for this episode was Kristie Edling-Day, CIO for Advisor Technology at LPL Financial. We spoke about a wide range of topics, but we're really focusing on AI and a new release that LPL came out with of a curated group of AI tools that they are launching for their advisors. So we talked about that. We talked about their AI integration strategy. We talked about some AI use cases and the impact of those on advisors. We touched a little bit on regulatory and compliance. And finally, AI's role in advisor-client relationships, which is so important. I mean, here at Ezra Group, we work with a lot of RIAs and broker-dealers, and of course, focusing on their advisor-client relationships and making them better is something we get brought in a lot for. Looking to the future, how we can improve those, how can we make it easier for advisors to deliver advice and make clients understand what they're getting better. So in order to do that, we've had to look at literally hundreds of tech stacks of wealth management firms. And let me tell you, most of them are loaded down with tech debt. Let's face it, tech debt can act like an anchor, holding down your RIA or broker-dealer's efficiency and ability to scale. So if you want to free your firm for exponential growth, you need to run, not walk to our website, ezragroup.com, and click the golden Contact Us button on the homepage. The experienced team at Ezra Group can evaluate your current tech ecosystem, deliver targeted recommendations, especially about AI, optimize your existing systems and operations, even run an RFP, and help you implement a new software to get your firm to the next level. Ezra Group just makes tech stacks better. You can take advantage of our free initial consultation by going to ezragroup.com. Now, a few housekeeping chores. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Please check out our sponsor, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation at investinothers.org. And if you are a software vendor in the wealth tech space, please go to our website, ezragroup.com/register to register your product and in our Wealth Tech Integration Score database. The Ezra Group Wealth Tech Integration Score is the industry standard for comparing software applications and how well they integrate with every other software application in our space. And being able to deliver the best data to our database will make sure your product score is always up to date. So that's ezragroup.com/register. Now, let's kick this thing off. All right, I'm excited to introduce our guest today. It's Kristie Edling-Day, CIO for Advisor Technology at LPL Financial. Kristie, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Craig, for the invite.
We are excited that you're here. I'm excited that you're here. We had to reschedule this a couple of times because you are a busy executive. Where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from our tech headquarters in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Nice. So we're both on East Coast time, which is good because it's early.
It is good, especially, because it's early.
Right. Excellent. All right. So I can't imagine anyone doesn't know, but give us a 30-second elevator pitch for LPL Financial.
Sure. So LPL is the country's largest independent broker-dealer. As of just recently, we're knocking on the door of having 30,000 advisors on our platform. And we pride ourselves in being a firm that is really, really focused on enabling the advisor to provide the advice that they want to their investors. So we don't also have a retail direct group. We like the purity of focus on enabling the advisor, and you'll hear that woven through, our conversation today, because it really guides our choices, and sometimes they're distinct choices from many of the other players in the industry.
And more importantly, you don't compete with your advisors.
We don't compete with our advisors.
That's right. That's a major, major improvement. And just a disclaimer, Ezra Group has done some work for LPL over the years, over the last, I think, 10 or 12 years in different aspects, but nothing about what we're talking about. Right? We haven't done anything related to this. So what we're talking about is a new AI advisor solution initiative with the vision to become the wealth management platform of choice by 2026. So always interested in that. A lot of our clients are asking us about AI. We're doing a lot of AI implementations and integrations and, of course, research. But what additional AI capabilities have you introduced, and what are you planning to introduce this year?
Sure. So I guess I'll answer in a couple different ways. So the AI solutions program that you mentioned is a ratified, call it, group of third-party AI-enabled tools that LPL has done all of the security, regulatory, vetting, and scrutiny for. So they're part of our affiliation program, the affinity, we'll
There
start
you
that
go.
over again.
Gotcha.
I'm like an affiliation model. No. Um,
Move on.
where does it make sense to pick up? Just
Let
like
me ask the
debating the
question
question.
again,
Okay, cool.
and then you just start again. It's much easier.
Okay.
Uh, so, Kristie, I want to start recently with an announcement that LPL has launched a curated AI solution for advisors. So, this is, as I understand it, a curated group of third-party applications that LPL has vetted and put together for advisors. So, we talk about why you did that and how it's going to be benefiting advisors to have this, and what other, are you planning on any other capabilities to add this year?
So, yeah, a lot in that question, Craig. I'll do my best to answer in the order that you put it out there. But I think, at its core, LPL's goal is to be the wealth management platform of choice. And that means different things to different advisors. In the case of the AI solutions, that the program that you mentioned, it's really starting with the recognition that most advisors want to be advisors. Ironically enough, they don't want to be CIOs for their own business. And so, knowing how many different third-party AI tools are that are out there, it seems like new ones are popping up all the time, and that's just in the advisor technology space alone. Um, that program is really meant to give advisors peace of mind if they want to start their foray into AI-driven technology. LPL does the regulatory vetting, the security analysis, and really puts these solutions onto its affinity platform so that advisors have the peace of mind knowing that their broker dealer has sort of backed and vetted this group of technologies, unlike many of the other technologies that are out there that have not gone through that level of scrutiny. Um, in the like at its launch, we focused on a few different core areas, but really the focus back to what does the advisor need from us. We believe, first of all, in giving advisors choice, not making decisions that tie them to our platform, and that really give them time back in their day to do what they choose to do with it. And so we picked four initial use cases, focused on areas that advisors tend to spend a lot of time on. So referencing my notes here a second, marketing and prospecting was an early use case. Investment research and analysis, of course, the famous, and we'll talk about it more, the meeting note taking use case, and just general business management. So in the Microsoft Copilot case. And then, later in the year, we have a goal actually every quarter of introducing at least two new tools, which we've hit on and successfully this year. Probably, in the second half of the year, going to be looking at rounding out some of those areas. So introducing one tool does not necessarily mean we've covered the entire use case. And so, probably another tool or two in the investment research space, probably some more in the knowledge management space as well. And we're going to start to look at calendaring and scheduling.
I know that you had built out something. I'd been recently at the LPL client conference. I know you had some really interesting meeting tools that you built yourself. So what you're talking about calendaring, you're looking at third-party calendar tools.
Yep. Yep. So everything I just talked about was the AI. When we say AI solutions, think third party.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we also have the work that we're doing to build and integrate tools into the platform specifically, which I know we'll talk about a little bit later on. But again, back to not every advisory tool deeply integrated in their broker dealer's tech stack.
Mhm.
We're trying to provide some of those, popular use cases where advisors can pick the third party tool while we're integrating and building our own capabilities as well.
So I have a couple follow-up questions.
Sure.
One is you mentioned looking at knowledge management as an AI
Yep.
use case. So does this mean, for example, uh, that as an advisor, I'll be able to ask questions to say, well, where do I find this form? Or how do I open this kind of account? Or what if I'm going to integrate this with this? Can I do it? And it'll search the entire database of knowledge across all of LPL and give me those answers.
Well, great question. So actually, I have two answers. So from an AI solutions perspective, like that affinity program, that would be more an internal advisors being able to look at the universe of documents that they've created. So
Mhm.
imagine an advisor who does a ton of financial planning and wanting to look through the aggregated financial plans that they've created over time and potentially create a template out of that. One of the solutions that we recently announced was turning on Box's AI enabled features. So you put your documents in Box, it can do summarization of long documents, it can look at multiple documents together and synthesize out insights. But to your point on what can knowledge management mean to our platform, we're working on that as well. So one of the internal capabilities that we're really excited about is really applying AI-driven search to our tool called Resource Manager, or sorry, Resource Center, and literally allowing an advisor to be able to go in and do that smart search where we have a notorious amount of information out there. It can
Mhm.
be difficult to find. One of our focus areas is back to giving advisors time back in their day. How can we make it easier for them to find what they're looking for in the
Mhm.
sea of information that's out there?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of similar proof of concepts around that, especially around the custodians, which LPL is a custodian as well. Things like my client lost their debit card. How do I replace it? And the AI knows what, give me the client number, the client account number. It pulls that information, pre-populates the form for them.
Yeah. And what I love about what you just said, Craig, is that so first of all, we love it when our advisors call us. But there are some calls we love more than others, and similarly there are some calls that our advisors want to make more than others.
Hmm.
And those like basic how to, I just
Hmm.
need to get this done. Our advisors don't want to call us if they can self-provision the answer, and
Hmm.
that's not a use of time that we would want to spend if we are going to choose to have a conversation with our advisors. And so this is one where it's a win for us, it's a win for them, and like we love those in particular.
The LPL's core platform is called ClientWorks,
Right.
and it's grown over the years. We've been watching multiple iterations, and as I mentioned earlier, we've helped out with some targeted areas of ClientWorks. So we've seen it grow and really improve to one of the best platforms in the industry. So, what considerations are guiding your approach to maintain what you have built an intuitive advisor experience, and then layering on these AI tools, all of which operate a little differently. They all use different LLMs, they make different approaches. How do you maintain what you built as a very seamless advisor experience with ClientWorks?
So I love the question. And I would say one of the key considerations for us is avoiding the swivel chair. Whether it's for an advisor who wants to reduce clicks in their day, or honestly, our service professionals, they do not want to have a separate tool prompting them to help with phone calls any more than an
Mhm.
advisor wants to be switching back and forth between applications. And so we've been really, invested a lot of thought into how might we redesign the client works experience itself to allow for what we're calling contact in context, so that it's not a tool that sits off to the side, that there's actually a way for the AI that we will be building, depending on the different page, like which different page and which different application, to actually kind of seamlessly join the experience and participate and help the advisor on that experience without the advisor having to click out and go to somewhere different. I mean, one good example of that, the next best action tool that we've built for our advisors today right now sits off in its own little application. And while feedback has been great and advisors are using it, we believe that really to be seamless and part of an advisor's day, those insights that are popping up really should be integrated in the master experience. And so we're doing work actually right now to figure out how to take that intelligence and create a way for that intelligence to be served up in the context of what the advisor is doing in their workflow.
That's something we see a lot that's missing with some point AI solutions is context. And you do wind up having more task switching than you need. But one thing we just did some research here at Ezra Group on AI note takers and assistants, and one thing we found was some of the higher end tools and enterprise tools were building out more integrations and pulling data from way more areas of the firm and acting sort of like data aggregators and control and really giving the advisors way more information than they ever would have before. Do you see that occurring as well? And are you looking to build something, an LPL version of that, where all of the data would be living in some sort of AI data lake?
Great question. So first of all, we're seeing, similar things as well. I think it's going to be an interesting, I don't want to say battle, but maybe battle or duke out between
Mhm.
ultimately the incumbent CRM providers versus some of the meeting note-taking startups, because you're right, like those two worlds are converging. I think rather than thinking so much about the container, back to the point of like an advisor's day and what they're trying to do, I think we see it very similarly, where what we want to do, and by the way, we're investing quite a bit in our overall data foundation, our data architecture, to be able to have all of that data that an advisor might find relevant in a single place. But back to our previous point, being able to serve it up in a familiar context, which is the client works that they use every day, rather than having a whole separate overlay or something that they have to go and swivel over to.
Makes perfect sense. Another thing I wanted to ask about your earlier question, you're talking about the use cases that you selected. How were those use cases selected? Is there an advisor team or list of stakeholders of your top advisors who make recommendations to you?
So multiple different approaches. So I'll start with a master industry observation. So JD Power last year put out some research about the advisor intermediated market, and they had mentioned that most financial advisors, in fact, there it was between 20 and 30% said that they felt like they didn't have enough time to spend with their clients. And 40% of them felt like they were investing that time into non-value added kind of back office tasks. So that was by the way, a hypothesis that we had too. So we use industry research, of course, like everybody does. We do also have an advisor AI council as well, where in my time in the role, and as AI has gotten more and more popular, there are some of our advisors who are further on the technology adoption curve than others, and they're really excited and they have a lot of ideas and input. So we talk with them, we run use cases by them, and then, of course, Craig, we have a lot of interaction at client conferences. And so we're sort of constantly getting information from individual advisors, from groups of advisors. We're aggregating it with what we know, because obviously with 30,000 advisors on the platform, we have a lot of experience and insight, combined with industry research, and all of those things together lead us to, hey, here are the big buckets of time where advisors are spending that we feel like there's a better, way to use it, and then we prioritize the use cases accordingly.
With 30,000 advisors, you're almost 10% of the entire advisor population in the country.
Well, and I never want to take it for granted and never want to be glib, but with our aspiration to be the wealth management platform of choice, we have so much more work to do. On the other hand, you could argue that we're getting there, just based on how advisors are voting with their feet.
All right, so I'm going to skip the pain point question because we kind of covered that about AI solutions addressing these pain points. But let's talk about the specific applications in your AI solution value pack. All right, so Jump, Microsoft Copilot, FMG Mobile, and FactSet. Those are the initial ones. So you talked a bit about how you picked them, but now how are you going to measure if they have an impact on advisor productivity and what that impact actually is?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that really gets to the heart of something that I mentioned earlier about the importance of advisor choice. So for us, unlike a wirehouse where the advisors are captive, if an advisor chooses, for example, to use Jump, and we'll talk more about Jump in a second, or Advisor Copilot, or any one of the tools that we put on the platform that's not integrated directly with ClientWorks, we have to rely more on their feedback and anecdote as opposed to direct usage. Now, like with Copilot, we use Copilot within LPL, so we have a little bit better of a proxy. But I'll take Jump for example. Depending on who you talk to. In fact, I was at an advisor conference a few months ago. We were leading a technology breakout, and before we could even start the session, we had an advisor in both. It was two mirror sessions back to back. In both sessions, we had an advisor jump up and start talking about how much they love Jump and what a game changer it is and how many hours it saves them. And so we start to have those conversations with advisors, how many hours is it saving? How much time is it saving? We're hearing anywhere with Jump AI to, from 30 minutes to 2 hours a day. And all of these, it depends a bit on whether they're a power user or not, how comfortable they are with the tool. For tools that we have built ourselves, so I mentioned next best action for a second. We have a much better sense of being able to approximate the time savings. What are the insights that they're providing? How many clicks would it have been for them to go find it on their own? We've just recently added a communication drafter to the next best action tool. So how long would it typically take to draft an email about that? And so with direct data on usage, we have a better sense of time saved. So it depends a little bit.
I know, having seen a lot of your software, that you do measure clicks and scrolls and how many it takes to get to the end of the job, like a new account opening, how many actual clicks, how many times they scrolling the screen or moving around in
That's
order to
right.
do each task, and you're looking to drive that number down. So are there specific use cases like a client account opening, client meetings, move money, that you see that these types of tools, client advisors putting out new email marketing or research, that you're looking to see that you're expecting to have the most impact?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the areas that we're really excited about is the new account onboarding, how to help advisors, onboard new clients, actually how to help advisors onboard into the firm. It's an area that's ripe for AI assistance. So really excited about that. We've already talked a bit about knowledge management within the firm itself, and helping advisors in context figure out what they may be looking for before, like to preempt the phone call. I think one of the other areas where, the regulatory landscape is not as near term promising, but one of the areas that we think that I've talked with multiple advisors about is model recommendation, and helping them understand why one model versus another may be a better fit for a client. Now, we haven't dabbled there yet just because of the regulatory uncertainty, but as compliance and SEC rules clear up in some of those areas, we'll have a better we'll have a better path forward. But honestly, I mean, those are just a few point examples, but we don't see the advisor going away, to be clear, at all. We
Hmm.
actually see the advisor continuing to be elevated as part of this, but we do think that over time, a significant part of the job ends up becoming fruit for AI to help bring efficiency to the day.
It's only a matter of time. It's
It
bringing
is.
efficiency in every aspect of our lives.
That's
So
right.
there's no reason why advisors won't be using it more often, and using it to help them deliver better service, right? It's not going to, like any technology revolution, whether it's the IBM the PC when it first came out, it revolutionized the way things would get done. It certainly didn't, at first some things changed. When email came out, that changed the way we operate. When mobile phones came out, that changed. So There's a reason AI is going to change as well, but it's also going to create thousands of new jobs that didn't exist before.
Yeah, I would say the only advisors that should be afraid of AI are the ones who choose to not learn about it and not start to adapt and learn. Just as, to your point, it's been with every technology that has been a threat to disrupting the advisor market. There have been many calls for the disruption and elimination of the financial advisor.
Mhm.
They have all been wrong, whether it was, the introduction of sort of portfolio accounting software to the robos and everything in between. The financial advisor, in fact, that same JD study that I referenced earlier showed that Generation Z prefers in person ahead of every other channel.
Mhm.
So I don't see any world in which the financial advisor is actually threatened unless they choose to not learn and not to
Mhm.
start to adopt this new technology. Otherwise, like every other phase of technology before, it just heightens the value that they add and takes a lot of the toil out of the day that people would rather not be doing anyway.
I would add to that not only learn about the technology, but look to move yourself up the value chain. And
That's
it's
right.
similar to robo advisors. They didn't put a lot of advisors out of business, but the ones who were just doing a basket of ETFs and charging 100 basis points, they and didn't change, they went out of business because why would I go to you when I could just go to Betterment for exactly the same service? So most advisors who were doing that said, well, I got to add more. So they added financial planning, they added trust in the state, they added something else to their toolkit to provide more value added to clients. So they wouldn't go to Betterment.
Well, and so I completely agree, and I will add another point on top of that, which is the value of human expertise only continues to heighten. And it would be easy to say, okay, well, an AI can know all of that. Why would I continue to invest in book knowledge? It's exactly the wrong way to think about it because the more advanced AI gets, the harder it is and the more expertise it requires to be able to differentiate when the AI is actually hallucinating versus when it's providing good advice. Kind of like the whole advent of how fishing has progressed. Used to be really easy to detect a fish. Now, because of AI, it's much harder and it takes a much more practiced eye. And I think it's exactly the same whether you're a computer engineer or whether you're a financial advisor. That human expertise, that practiced experience of knowing like the patterns and recognizing, what might be sound good but isn't actually founded well is going to go a long way for the financial professionals.
And speaking of that, let me just make a call out to Microsoft. All of us Outlook users, your AI should be able to see these 85 DocuPaste, or rather DocuSign, fake DocuSigns that I get every day from, this wacky email address, that wacky email address, this Gmail. They're fake. They are. Just stop showing me them. You need to do a little better job getting them out of my inbox. Come on, Microsoft. All right. So speaking of it, you mentioned a couple minutes ago regulatory concerns and compliance. So you've always had to do this, right? We've been tracking and working with you guys on the Affinity program. You have a tremendous compliance organization, a technology organization that has these applications jumping through hoops on cybersecurity. But AI is a little different, right? Because as you mentioned, hallucinations, and each one of these applications has their own LLMs that are driving the output, which is different. So have you changed your vendor vetting process to accommodate the unique capabilities and risks of AI tools?
Yeah, so early on we made and I can say this without sounding self-aggrandizing because it was the team who came up with the recommendation to make sure that we weren't creating a bespoke process for AI tools. We actually modified our overall governance and vendor approach to account for AI because, of course, like every vendor tool over time is going to have AI. We didn't want a whole separate thing. And so we created call it a sub process in cases where there was an AI component or it was a specific AI tool, which was sort of like think of it as a detour in the overall process with extra scrutiny that took place in cases where it was an AI capability that we were going to be vetting. And so some of the things that do actually complicate the world a bit when it comes to AI vetting, things that you don't have to think about with a deterministic tool, which is sort of output in, predictable output out. With a non-deterministic tool like AI and with LLMs in particular, you have to be looking at things like transparency. So how did it get the answer that it got to? What was the data that it looked at? Um, the security of the data. So we've always been careful with PII, of course. But with the advent of LLMs, if the AI goes in, there were early concerns about does the PII that goes in, does that PII get ingested into the model and become part of the domain of knowledge that AI holds? So there's extra layers of how is data that goes in secured, how are answers determined, what is a right answer, what is the regulatory correctness of the answer. So, one fun example that I like, and I won't use the name of the firm, but it's a very well recognized firm in investment research and analysis. We were actually able to, as we did testing on the tool, we were able to get the tool to provide advice,
Mm.
which of course, in our line of work, and I'm the technology provider for that line of work, like there's a fiduciary line that we can't cross. And so there are things that AI enables that we have to test for and be aware of outside of sort of the traditional vendor process. But once that hurdle is passed, if you think about the detour, it just sort of moves right back into the normal process.
We are almost out of time. I want to squeeze in one more question. And I'm thinking, what is it that you're most excited about when it comes to AI in the future? Looking at your role, looking at what you oversee, a large part of the largest broker-dealer in the country, where do you see what's most exciting about how AI is going to help advisors in the near future?
So I happen to have a hard science degree, but I am a liberal heart arts person
Mhm.
by nature. I love relationships. I love language. I love communication. And for me, it's very, very exciting to see that the future of AI, in my opinion, is actually a hard science technology tool that I think will and is already proving to be a tool and a mechanism that deepens relationships and that facilitates richer dialogues and deeper connection between an advisor and their client, which it's a little bit of a paradox, but I love it because like I said, we're already seeing it. The advent of Jump and how excited advisors are about it is a great example.
I hear where you're coming from. I also have a BS in computer science, so I see it, similarly that you know, it's a huge benefit. It's really, we've been talking about AI for decades, and it's now finally coming to fruition. And it's great to be around in this time frame and have our careers still running where we can take advantage of these capabilities, and it's only going to make things better and better. And Kristie, we are out of time. Where can the audience learn more about LPL?
Please visit us at lplfinancial.com.
And there you have it. Kristie, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top three takeaways for this program. So we're really interested in this AI curated solution that LPL's put together, and thanks to Kristie for walking us through it. So it's a group of third-party applications that include Microsoft Copilot, FMG Mobile, FactSet, and Jump. And they've picked those because they're focusing on marketing and prospecting, investment research, meeting note-taking, and business management that they saw as the most important or highest priority use cases for advisors. Their goal is to introduce two new tools every quarter. Not everyone's going to be AI, but I have a feeling a lot of them will be. They're looking to they have an AI integration strategy that they want to have AI integrated into ClientWorks in context rather than separate tools. We want to avoid the swivel chair, which makes a lot of sense. And they see regulatory and compliance considerations being an issue, but they believe that applying transparency for AI decision-making, data security, and regulatory correctness of output will resolve those issues. All right. Thanks again for listening to the Wealth Tech Today podcast. You've reached the end. But before you go, please go to our website, ezragroup.com, and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management news, information, and updates. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.